Hello, Santa Clarita, and everyone listening in from around the world. You are right here at your hometown station, KHTS. I am Sharon Brubaker with my co-host, Sandy Atmore.
Hi there.
Sandy. And this is the Grief Recovery Hour. Sandy and I are both advanced certified grief recovery specialists. That means that we help people through the loss of any kind that happens in their heart. And today on the Grief Recovery Hour, we are going to talk about grief, love, loss, and the pain that occurs in your heart. I also have been posting on Facebook that I have some big news, and we're going to share that at the end of the show, which I'm really excited about.
Wait.
I know, it's so exciting. So you guys got to listen in. Hey, we are Facebook Live, so if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Dropbox on Facebook, call into the radio station. We would love to answer any questions. It's all confidential, so we'll love to have that. If you are listening to the show today, there's a huge probability that your heart is broken. It could be from a death, divorce, or breakup of a romantic relationship. Regardless of the cause of your broken heart, you know how you feel. Sandy and I are not going to tell you how you feel because you already know. At best, we can tell you what it felt like when our broken hearts occurred and what we did to get through it, right?
Absolutely. That's so true. And I love that you share that, because I think it's so important for people to know that how they feel is okay.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking with somebody today who actually got to this point in their life of saying, you know what, right now I'm not okay.
Right.
And I'm going to be okay with not being okay.
Isn't that cool?
Very.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that gives that person the opportunity to then walk into a process where they can address what isn't okay. But the first step is going, I'm not okay right now.
Yeah.
Because I think in society we can feel, or maybe we grow up in our families and we can feel like, I have to put this image on, or I have to hurry up and feel better. But there are times in our lives, right, seasons where for multitudes of things, which we'll talk about today, that's not possible.
And you know, you're bringing that up. It's separate from the grief that we feel when a death happens. Like,
absolutely.
We expect to not feel okay when a death happens.
Yes.
Close member, friend, family, or a pet, right? But what about just walking around and just not being okay and not knowing what the reason is?
Oh, I love that. That's so huge. And actually, the kind of the client that I'm speaking about, that realization of I'm just not okay right now, was the point for this person to then go on and discover what is at the root of me not feeling okay. It opened up a space to actually figure that out instead of trying to cover it up, avoid it, push it away, and just keep trying to walk through life limping.
And the part that you're walking through life, you're limping, but you're not really enjoying. You're not living. It is literally like carrying, I tell clients all the time, like carrying a backpack full of potatoes. It's so heavy. Erica says rocks all the time, but I like potatoes. So you're carrying this around. It's so heavy. You don't know what it is. You're not enjoying. The backpack is so heavy. You got to put it down all the time, and then you pick it back up. It's like no matter where you go, there you are with all this stuff. I think it's so cool for us to really get out the word that grief is not always about death.
I agree with you. That's, I think, one of the big misconceptions that I see most of the time. You know, right? As soon as I share, I'm a, advanced certified grief recovery specialist, the first thing that most people say to me is, oh, you help people when they're dealing with death.
Yeah.
That's probably the first comment that I get.
Oh, how do you do it? And it's not just death. It's every loss. And here's one of the questions that I had for today for you and I to talk about. So I'll just go right into it. Why are we never taught how to grieve properly? What do you think that is? Why, if we're all going to grieve at some point in our life, right? We're all going to experience it. Either death, divorce, breakup of a romantic relationship, a feeling of not being happy, losing that favorite interview, that job that you just knew you were going to get, going in 6 times and still not getting that job, having a child born with a disability, suffering through that, financial changes, okay, all of those things, we all know at some point in our life we're going to grieve. Our hearts are going to be broken, but yet we're still not taught how to do it properly. I don't understand what that is. Why do we hang on to that? the myths of how we do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, kind of even speaking to what you were saying about all the different losses, sometimes even the childhood that we have.
Yeah.
Where there was abuse or neglect,
right.
or, I was talking with somebody recently where they were like, I always told myself that I grew up in an intact home. Both parents were there.
Right.
Nobody hit me.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of words spoken over this person
right.
that were hurtful. And so in that case, this person lost feeling safe. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, learned to hide. So actually, this person also lost their identity. So they've just connected with, I never grieved that I lost these things. So there's so many ways, you're right, that we can experience loss and that we are, in a sense, grieving. But most of the time, most of us aren't grieving, right? We're just holding it inside.
Right.
And yeah, I agree with you. There's so many myths out there that prevent us from grieving.
Right.
Like the first one, right? That idea that time is just going to heal.
That we can go on for time and time and time, and that it's just going to feel better. I know that I have seen clients that have had things happen 10 and 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And one I'm working with right now, it's been over 10 years, and they never were helped or got through that process because they went right into the being okay and being strong, and here they are 10 years later, and it's come up as if it just happened yesterday. Grief is not a bad word.
No.
Why are we afraid of it?
I think, for one, another movement that's been in our culture for a very long time is kind of this think positive,
right?
Look for the silver lining.
Yeah.
If you're feeling sad feelings, then you need to hurry up and feel better.
Right.
And you're going to make people uncomfortable, or you're going to be a burden. So now all of a sudden, grief is seen as something that's an isolated event.
Yes.
That few people experience, and it's not something that we want to talk about, and it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
Negative. Yeah.
And I think a lot of times what happens with grief is that people think that you're going to cry. If I bring up the brokenness in your heart, you're going to cry. Or I might cry if I go to share it, myself. And so I don't want to cry. I don't want to show the emotions. And I don't want you to show the emotions. So I'm just not going to talk about it. And that's what's so crazy and so scary, is that we need to tell the truth. And we need to tell the truth always. Grief equals loss. I think that's also what is so important that gets messed sometimes.
Yes.
Is that grief absolutely equals loss, and a loss of any kind, right? It's not just death, and that is what's so important. With the positive thinking that you were talking about?
Yeah.
I think that also what goes with that is just quickly change your mind, change your thinking.
Yes.
Don't think that. Push it down. That's not going to happen. Sandy, that doesn't work.
Well, it's so true, because we're also in a very intellectualized society.
Right.
You're right. It's a lot about the thinking and the mind.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with, looking at our minds and the way that we think. But grief and loss are actually a different experience. It's not an intellectual experience. It's an emotional experience.
Yeah.
And your emotional being works differently than your intellectual being.
Right.
I can switch my thoughts, but I cannot switch my emotions. And if I try to switch my emotions, meaning I try to go from feeling sad to feeling happy, what I end up doing is suppressing my emotions, because emotions were made to express.
Yes.
And so I find, and I'm sure you do too, when I work with people a lot of times, there's a lot that they're carrying that's unresolved because they've learned how to suppress.
Yes. And here's the crazy thing. You have the thought first. So many times we have the thought first, and then the feeling attaches to the thought. So they may think, I am unhappy with my current job. So we have this thought, and then it feels heavy in our heart. But I'm not going to think that. I'm going to think positive thoughts. And we try to push this down, but the emotions are just there, and we can't suppress them. It's also a form of denial.
Very much.
How many times have you met people, and this has happened to me recently so much, well, I'm just going to act like it didn't happen. I'm just going to act like it didn't happen. How long is that going to work, my friends? you're not going to be able to walk around as if you didn't lose your house and that you're acting like it didn't happen, and you're just going to move on, pack up all your belongings, and go rent a house and act like that house was not your favorite house. It was not your dream house that you built from the ground up and you absolutely loved. But because you lost your job 2 years ago, you weren't able to hold on to it. Well, I'm just going to go over here and move to this new town and act like that didn't happen. It will catch up to you, I promise.
Always.
If it doesn't catch up to you physically, emotionally, and mentally, it will show up in different ways that you try to cover it up through overeating, overdrinking, anger, depression, or that whole sense of what you and I were talking about of just feeling not happy.
Yeah, you make a really great point, because, one of the thoughts that I had is as you were speaking, is it's so true. Like, kind of going back to what you were saying about, like, why is grief seen as such a bad word? I think there's also this idea that I see a lot of people carry, is that if I'm feeling sad, there's something wrong with me. And so I need to hurry up and feel better so that something can be right with me. And, a lot of times what I share with people is, in your desire to feel better, you are actually suppressing, right, your grief, and you're going to have to avoid that for a lifetime. We actually feel better when we face what's inside, when we acknowledge the truth, we get the opportunity to express it. Yes, that's painful in the moment, but then you're going to feel so much better on the other side.
Absolutely.
As opposed to, I'm carrying around, like you said, potatoes.
Yeah.
I'm carrying these potatoes and they're heavy and I got to carry them around. And so now I just have to distract my attention from knowing that the backpack is even there. How tiring is that?
That's so tiring. Grieving is exhausting.
Yes.
It's absolutely exhausting. Trying to keep the grief under control.
Yeah.
Keep it from just not showing up every day, pushing it down, getting up and acting as if everything is normal is so exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. Even in the moment when you're living it and you admit that you're grieving because you've had a death, even that type of grief is so totally exhausting.
It is. And I think the other thing that goes with that too is that people often feel like, well, if I face what's inside, if I feel the pain, it's always going to feel like that.
Yeah.
It's never going to stop.
Yes.
And I'm never going to get over this. So imagine if I'm believing that I'm never going to recover from something, what would be my motivation to then really actually grieve it? I wouldn't have motivation. Kind of in my world where I personally come from trauma in childhood and having a lot of abuse and all these things, there can be this sense of like, well, once that's happened to you and you've lost trust and safety and all those kind of things, you're just going to be damaged for life. How inspiring is that?
Yeah.
So of course we're going to want to avoid and have a quick fix.
Yes.
But really you and I know the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is when I identify what I've lost.
Yes.
When I am able to fully grieve, not just, I think I feel sad right now, but actually walk through a community process of being able to grieve, then I actually feel different for life.
Yeah.
And I'm not stuck anymore.
And you've touched on something a little bit ago, which I really liked. And something happens to us when we are working with grievers, no matter what their loss is. I can see it around the third or fourth session. And it is the most amazing thing. They don't always see it, but I see it. They may walk in and tell a joke. They may have just a little smile on their face. Sometimes it's like they're happy to see me and really just get to talking.
Yes.
It's because being able to talk about it is the first step in recovering. Being able to get that out, release some of the pressure. It's not all of the steps, but it's that first step, and it really helps. Having somebody understand, hear them, respectfully listen to them is so huge, isn't it?
Oh, it's tremendous. And I think, just kind of to piggyback on what you said, I've even seen people look different by that week.
100%.
Oh my goodness. All of a sudden they walk in and I'm like, what happened to you? You look amazing. Like their appearance changes.
It's the reason that I do this. And I'm laughing because I have an amazing client and I am just like, when they came into me, they were so broken. And now I'm like so overwhelmed by how amazing they look and how they're doing. I could just cry right now thinking about it. In just, 10 short weeks, because we've done some extensive work, in just 10 short weeks, their whole entire life has changed.
I had one person who was having health issues. It was like stomach issues. Yeah. Doctors couldn't figure it out, didn't know what it was, and it was getting worse and worse. And they ended up working with me, doing, going through the process of grief recovery. By week 2, those symptoms started to subside. Yeah. By week 8, they were gone. Yeah. They have never come back.
Yeah. Yeah. It is such an amazing program. Guys, what we're talking about is grief recovery. Yeah. The Grief Recovery Institute has been around for over 40 years. They used to be right here in Sherman Oaks, but they closed about 2 years ago. The main office is in Bend, Oregon. There's about 8,000 or more grief recovery specialists, and we are really trying to get the word out that grief is an actual loss, that you can recover from grief, and that there's a process through working through the grief, through looking at examining your heart. We look at examining all the losses in your heart, which is kind of cool. And that's when the griever really starts talking about it and starts sharing about it. So that's the message we're trying to get across. And you and I have been working on it for years. Yes. Trying to get it out that grief is not an ugly word. It's not a bad word. And that there is possibilities. Last week I did a show with Erica, my sister, who's lost 2 boys, which was an amazing show. And one of the things that she hears quite often when she tells someone that that her sons have died, you'll never get over the loss of a child. And that's what the show was all about. Wow. And so to really, truly experience recovery, and that's what she was sharing last week, is that I'm living my life. I will forever miss them. There are 2 big holes in my heart, but my life is not with lack and without. And that's, that hearing that all the time, you'll never get over the loss of a child. I'll never get beyond this. And the fact that you can actually live again.
It really puts us in a place, I believe, as a society, and I know in many other parts of the world, we're crippled. Yeah. We're crippled. And I think for Sharon and I, this subject is so important, and we really want the educational part of this to get out there about, grief is not a bad word. Let's understand what loss is. Yes. Let's understand that recovery is possible, because we both have personal experiences with this that have been very profound. We've worked with multitudes of people who have experienced the same thing. And what happens is because many of us don't understand this, we're crippled. Yes. We have a society of people that are crippled, that are living less than what they were meant to live, just simply because they don't understand grief, and because as a society, we don't know how to grieve. Yeah. We don't know how to grieve. And that's what's scary and sad, I think. It is really sad. And that we're really trying to get the word out there and have people understand. So for me, I want to share real quick. I have grieved every potato in my backpack. And I emptied them out. And I can honestly say that after I completed my grief loss, all of my relationships, all of the loss, I just felt lighter, Sandy. Yes. I felt like things were just lighter. Mm-hmm. And I tell my clients all the time, I still have to pay my bills. I still have to get up every morning. It didn't give me $1 million in my check account. I still have the same life, but I'm not carrying that around. And it literally feels lighter even on your shoulders, not to have that extra baggage. And being able to use the process throughout. Using my tools that I have now throughout, I still grieve things in my life to this day. Me too. So it's been amazing. Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Sandy and I are going to talk a little bit deeper about the different types of losses that you can experience over a lifetime. So join us right back here after the break. We'll see you back.
I just want to send a shout out to all my customers. It's Dave Reeves from Reeves Complete Auto Center in Canyon Country.
Reeves, Santa Clarita's choice for quality customer and automotive care.
I've been in automotive service my whole life. I learned customer service and honest communication make the difference.
Reeves, where customers matter.
I really appreciate your business and hope to serve you in the future. Thank you very much.
Reeves, on Ruther in Canyon Country.
Your building sign is essential in getting customers to your location. Feathers can help get your business noticed. They walk you through each phase of your building sign project, providing special attention to detail and quality. Feathers will give you a sign you can be proud of. Your building sign will draw customers in instead of having them drive by. Feathers on Soledad in Canyon Country, across from the Edwards Theater. Or go to feathersphoto.com. That's feathersphoto.com.
All-Star Sports Grills is the best place in town to catch a Dodger game on one of their 17 screens and choose a cold one from 23 different tap beers. All-Star Sports Grills prides itself on their fresh, made-to-order menu, including half-pound Angus burgers. Enjoy an all-star comedy show the fourth Wednesday of the month. All-Star Sports has a pet-friendly and smoking patio. All-Star Sports Grills on Bouquet Canyon, north of Plum Canyon.
At City of Hope, we don't believe the future can wait for the future. For over a century, we've been advancing science that saves lives. From 4 of the world's top cancer-fighting drugs to the development of synthetic human insulin, we are maximizing the potential of immunotherapy and making precision medicine a reality. It's not enough to promise future cures for cancer. We must find them sooner. We are the miracle of science with soul. Find out more at cityofhope.org.
Welcome back, everyone. You are listening right here to KHTS, your hometown station. I am Sharon Brubaker with my co-host, Sandy Atmore. We are grief recovery specialists. And today the subject of our show is grief is not a bad word. And we're just trying to go a little bit deeper into the definition of grief. Yeah. And I think we both get so excited that we both are trying to but we want you guys to know that we need to start talking about it.
Yes.
And I think that talking about it exactly, well, first of all, we need to learn what grief is. Yeah. And then once we learn what grief is, we need to talk about it. And I believe that talking about it starts with our children. If we want to change something right now today, we need to change the way we speak to our children about grief. Would you agree?
Oh, I think that's definitely true. Children do experience loss. That's the first thing we need to understand. And, and I want to speak into that because, yes, children can experience some of the losses that we've talked about. That could be a death or could be a divorce. And, there could be those types of things. But, children can also just experience somebody at school picking on them.
Yes.
And it might not even be it might be a major bully situation, but it might not even be major.
Yeah.
But that you got to understand that's their world.
Right.
And in their world, that's a change. Moving for a child is a really big deal.
Leaving your best friends behind.
Big time.
Pet loss.
Yes, absolutely. Having an older sibling go away to college.
Yeah. Having a bike stolen. Mm-hmm. Or a toy or special toy.
Struggling in school.
Yes.
I've had that for some where, they had to have special aid or help and assistance and they felt like they were maybe ostracized or didn't feel like they matched up to their other students.
The pressure to perform.
Yes.
Having a grandparent die.
Very much.
That's huge. I've shared at a couple of schools, and I always bring it down as simple as I can when I'm sharing with them about what I do, on career day, and they all come up and share with me about their grandmother or grandfather dying and how it broke their little hearts. If it's not usually a pet, it's usually a grandparent that they usually experience it with first. And the way you talk to your children about it. Grief is a normal and natural reaction to a loss of any kind. So it's normal and natural for us to grieve. So we have to set the tone for how our children are going to grieve and teach them how to grieve. What do you think would be your number one piece of advice for parents out there?
Number one piece of advice is that there's a myth out there that says don't feel bad.
Yeah.
And what I find with how most parents respond when their child is going through a loss and expressing how they feel about the loss is that the parent wants to kind of step in and make the child feel better.
Yes.
So they don't want the child to feel bad. I believe heart in the right place on the parent side.
Right.
They don't want the child to feel bad. And so they want to help the child to feel better. And what they miss is an opportunity to actually hear what their child is experiencing. So stepping out of that myth of don't feel bad, then what you want to do is you want to kind of lean in. Yeah. Oh, so you're feeling sad that we're moving and that you're going to leave your friend. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. And when the parent says don't feel bad, I often notice that the kids hear don't feel.
Definitely.
They drop off the word bad and they just hear don't feel. And yes, tell me more about that. And sometimes what I will do is I will make up a story. I was really having a bad day today thinking about Austin. I remember that time where he was sitting on the porch crying and I tried giving him the ice cream and he didn't feel better. And it was really making me sad. And I just tell a little story to the child and remind him of that day. And then I just close my mouth and shut up and let them kind of come in with where they're feeling.
Yes.
They can add on to the story. Also, I think that's great advice. I also think the other thing that's so important that I see even parents doing of adult children, cry in front of your children. It's okay.
Yes.
Let them see that sign of emotion. Let them see that pain. Teach them how to grieve properly. Teach them that grief is normal. Loss is normal. It's okay to cry. It's not going to be the end of the world. I think that's so important.
I do too. Yeah. Because, and I guess the other piece that goes along with this, I think the best gift that parents can give their children is, as a parent, if you have unresolved grief, if you have losses that you have not dealt with, for you to get the help and support to deal with those losses. Because if you avoid feeling, if you avoid grieving, you're going to teach your child to do the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. So if you're experiencing a loss in your family, and this happened to me, you guys, when Austin died in 2006, I absolutely didn't want to show my daughters, who were 17 and 19 at that time. I didn't know any better. And so I didn't want to cry in front of them because I didn't want to scare them. I didn't want to freak them out. I thought this is going to really freak them out. And so what the advice I'm giving you is something that I did myself and I know now is wrong. So I would go in the shower every day and I would cry and cry and cry. And I knew as soon as I turned that knob, that I had to stop grieving and I had to be strong for them. I will even take it to the next step. I even at one point when they were crying, told them, I literally snapped my finger and said, you stop that right now. My sister has lost her child. This is about Erica. Like I literally told them, don't feel, don't go there. Man, I wish I had the tools to grief recovery way before that experience ever happened. All of the mistakes that I made along the way that held them back. Literally, both of my daughters held back on their grieving process because I forced them to push it down. I know beyond a reasonable doubt.
And that kind of goes back to what we were sharing or talking about, grief is bad and culture and the way that gets passed down. You were passing on to them what you had learned.
Yes. Yeah. And I can pinpoint back down the very first experience in my childhood of loss and how my parents and we never talked about it. Mm-hmm. I had an aunt pass away when I was a young girl, and we just never talked about it. And, they probably were never taught how to grieve either.
Right.
We were never taught how to grieve. So I did exactly what I saw them do, which was grieve alone. Don't show any sign of emotions and stay away from the children, which is, if we're supposed to be teaching our children the right way, there is a proper way to grieve, which is so amazing and beautiful. And going on that note, grieving properly is beautiful.
Very much.
When you look back at it and you give respect and love to that person and you properly grieve them, that is a beautiful experience.
It really is. And it can be a family experience.
Absolutely.
It can be something that you're going through together. And instead of it being where, we need to just hurry up and and fix ourselves and feel better. It can be we're going through this life experience together as a family. One other just point to parents and children and grieving. I remember being at a single parents retreat and speaking, and being on a panel one time, and this one parent, had raised their hand and said, my daughter was going to school and young child, and there was a boy that would pick on her all the time. And she would come home every day and she would be crying. And the parent said, so what I told her was, well, there's probably something wrong in his life. So, you need to understand that maybe, he's going through things at home. And so you need to turn the other cheek and, you need to love him. Now, the parent was very, very much meaning to be loving. And the parent was asking the question because they didn't like seeing their child cry every day. And so I couldn't wait to share. And I said, I understand your heart. And I'm saying this because I think a lot of times as parents in our wanting to teach our children something, we run over their feelings. And we think that just because a child is feeling sad means that they may not understand the thing I'm trying to teach them, when both things can exist. So what I shared with this parent is, I understand you want to fix things. And basically what you're communicating to your child is, well, you need to understand the other person, and therefore, your feelings aren't important. I said, but really what you want to do is get down to their level and be with them. Realize she's sad because she's being picked on. Mm-hmm. She's sad because she's not being understood. She's sad because her space is being violated, number one. So before you start trying to teach her to, turn the other cheek and everything, be with her in that. Yeah. And then help her to obviously find ways to be safe. And, it's not okay to be picked on, but let her grieve that experience. Yeah. It's not about her because she's already sad. Yeah. You can't not make her not feel sad. She's already sad. Yeah. So why not meet her there and help her to express it?
That is so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think what we do as parents, the very first thing we try to do is fix it.
Yes.
We try to fix it. We try to fix a situation or give them something else to look at, give them something else to think about, and almost change their focus. The same thing that we do as adults when we're like, I'm not going to think that. I'm going to think happy thoughts. It's the exact same thing.
Yes.
And the point is, Sandy, I think we're trying to make is that we learn this from a very early age. This is not something that was just innate within our gut. We learned this process.
We did.
We learned this from our parents and our teachers and our family. One of the things that I want to touch on is that you can use 5 simple words for a child to share their emotions: mad, sad, glad, afraid, and embarrassed.
Yes.
You can use those and talk in those with those emotional words and help the child to understand. So you can say, I'm really mad that he's doing that to you. This is making my heart so sad. And try to attach emotional words to the conversation you're having with your child to get them used to using their emotional words when they talk back to you, and you really get an understanding of where they are.
Absolutely. And, I was wondering too, we've talked about how as adults, when we don't grieve and we stuff our grief, how we have these signs. Are there signs in children that do that too?
Absolutely. I think absolutely. That's the connection right there. They grow up and they're like, well, she said to avoid it. She told me not to look at it. So I'm just going to turn the other cheek and keep going through it. But you telling that mom, allow her to grieve that process is huge. Is so huge. So that is, I definitely agree with you on that. Don't try to fix them. Love them through it.
Yes.
Is so important. The other thing is listen. Mm-hmm. Listening, guys, it's magical. Listening to what the children are telling us. There was a trick that I did when my children were smaller, and I share this with so many parents, and it's so simple. I turned the radio off in the car. And when my kids were in the car with me, I would just talk with them, I would listen to them, but there was no radio on. So much so that my grandson got in the car the other day, and he's 18 years old, and this happened a couple years ago, but he asked me who was driving my car, and I said, no one's been driving my car. Why? And he said, because your radio's on.
I love that.
He knows that when he gets in my car, it's just him and we're talking the whole time. And it's the perfect time to have that conversation with your children. Talk about how school went. Engage them in that conversation. Talk about the brokenness in their heart or some of the pain that might have come up. Because, Sandy, you know the worst question that we can ask our kids was, how was school today? Because they're going to give us that number one lie, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But if we can get through and have that moment where they know that I'm really going to listen to them when they talk. And parents, I have to tell you this. You got to pretend to listen even when you're still making your grocery list in your head.
Yeah.
Give them that safe space to talk, and you will be amazed at how much absolutely comes through that conversation and what happens in that car. Isn't that true?
It's so true. And I think a lot of times we underestimate our children.
Yeah.
I remember teaching a class, and a little boy came in, and he was about 4 years old. And he would usually come in every day, you know, kind of happy, really sweet. And this one day he came in, and you could just tell he was so heavy. So I just knelt down and I greeted him, and I said, okay, so what's going on? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling mad? And he sat there for a moment, kind of looked at me, kind of leaned into me, and he said, I'm feeling sad. Mm. You know, it was just engaging him on that level, using language, and he identified it. He told me how he was feeling. And, you know, sometimes we discredit actually how much they know.
And what they're feeling, and what they see and experience.
Yeah.
Also, I want to share that it is absolutely okay not to have something to say. Mm-hmm. Not to have something to say back to them, to just listen.
So good.
And maybe offer a hug. You know, instead of trying to fix a situation, just hear them out. And then offer them a hug. Can I give you a hug? And then offer them a hug. What a difference would that make? As opposed to, well, you know, you could go back on that playground right now and tell little Billy, you know, whatever you have to say instead of trying to fix it. What a difference it would make. What we have seen also is that kids that are brought up in homes like this, I know Rochelle Jones, another grief recovery specialist that we listen to quite often, and she teaches a lot of when children grieve. Her children are brought up in a when children grieve home. She absolutely sees her children grieving on the playground with their friends at camp, and she shares quite often these amazing stories. So I have to give some shout out to Rochelle that it really is teaching her children to grow up in a home like this. It's such a big difference.
It makes for such a better experience for the child.
Right. And I think we need to tell children the truth.
Yes.
We need to tell them the truth, because when we're hiding the truth from them, that doesn't mean they need to know everything.
Of course.
But when we're hiding the truth from them, it eventually is going to come out. They're going to figure it out. And that can be much worse for us than if we hadn't started with the truth in the very beginning. And we tell them what's age appropriate for them.
Of course.
Obviously what's age appropriate. Yeah. I mean, just think about being brought up in a home where the marriage is not doing well. They see so much. We think they don't. But to be able to have conversations with them where they're at, it is not uncommon for children to think that it was their fault.
Yes, there's a really actually big difference in people who have grown up in homes where maybe there was fighting, between the parents. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference for children where they were talked to, and it was explained to them like, this isn't your fault.
Right.
This is happening. I heard one gentleman speak, and he said in his home, his mom married a man who was very abusive. And he said, my mom didn't do everything right, but she would sit his kids down and say, I want you to know that what this man is doing is not okay. Mm. And she would have dialogue with them. And he said, I grew up knowing it wasn't my fault. Mm. And then you have somebody like me growing up in a home where there was a lot of abuse happening and nobody was saying anything. And I internalized it as all being my fault.
Right.
What a difference, right?
Right.
Same circumstances, but two very different outcomes, just because the child was empowered with language and connection and listening and talking.
Wow. How amazing is that? That's a beautiful share. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Even that tough, the worst conversation you could think about having.
That's true.
Which is death. I think sometimes when we have to talk to our children about death, I want to implore parents out there to use the word death, died,
Yes.
grief, and loss. Do tell your children that grandma has died, grandma is dead. Do not, even the youngest children possible, the 1, 2, and 3-year-olds, still use that word for them. Do not say she's gone on to a better place, even though that may be your belief and in your heart, because it's confusing for them. Don't say she's gone to be with God. We know, I've met children that thought they could go be where grandma was because she's gone on to be with God, that it was a place that they could get to.
Yes.
That it was another area or another place they could go to. So I implore upon you to make it simple, make the sentence very short. I'm so sorry, grandma died. And then just wait for their reaction. Let them talk. Do cry in front of them. Cry with them. Hug them. Attach these feeling words, mad, sad, glad, afraid, or embarrassed. And have that conversation and that dialogue.
So true. I know one specialist, actually, when she was little, her grandfather died. And what she was told is, we lost grandpa. So for many years, whenever she was out anywhere, she would be looking to try to find grandpa.
Oh, bless her heart.
Yeah.
When Austin died, we told Jordan, Erica told Jordan that he went to heaven, and one of their family friends' names was Kevin. And so all he kept thinking was that Kevin took Austin, and he kept saying it. So finally the third day, she realized, I have to tell him this, and he was 3 years old. I have to tell him the truth. And she said, buddy, Austin died. And when she told him, he put his head down. He literally knew what she was talking about. Guys, we're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, I have some exciting news to share, and I'm so glad that Sandy gets to be here with me sharing it. But we'll catch you right here after the break. Thanks.
Did you know that nearly 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime? And in Santa Clarita, our community supports its own domestic violence center with a shelter home, 24-hour crisis hotline, and bilingual counseling programs. If you or someone you know needs help, we're here. The 24-hour crisis hotline number is 259-HELP. For more information, go to dvcsantaclarita.com, because no one should tolerate domestic violence. 259-HELP.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top quality musicals and plays. Located on Main Street in Old Town Newhall, CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go online to canyontheater.org.
What to do, what to do. Your child's birthday is almost here. Put your birthday plans on ice. Ice Station Valencia. Throw a hassle-free party for 10 or more with an Ice Station party package. Public skating, rental skates, group lesson, birthday cake, pizza, soft drinks, party favors, and a decorated party area. Your party hostess will have a gift for your birthday child. For your fun ice skating party, call 775-8686 and keep your party cool. Ice Station Valencia, across the street from Valencia High.
AV Equipment Rentals is your local rental store. No matter how big or small your home project is, AV Equipment Rental has the tool you need to do the job right. From painting to plumbing, landscaping to automotive, their knowledgeable staff will make sure you get the right tool for the right price. In fact, they'll even help you load it in your car. I bet you didn't know they have propane to fill up your barbecue tank with no minimum quantity. With a large supply of tools and a helpful and professional staff, the hometown service attitude, AV Equipment Rental is your local Santa Clarita rental authority. Stop by AV Equipment Rentals today on Railroad Avenue in Newhall.
Welcome back, Santa Clarita, and everyone listening in from around the world. You are right here at KHTS, your hometown station, and you are listening to the Grief Recovery Hour. I am Sharon Brubaker, and my co-host is Sandy Atmore, and we are advanced grief recovery specialists. So I guess the time is right.
The time is right, and I am really excited. I mean, I've actually known Sharon for several years,
Yes.
but I feel like we've definitely been a lot more close in the last year or so. And when it comes to grief, she has such a passion, and she's helped so many people. She has an amazing story. She's an amazing speaker, and she's just made so many inroads in getting the word out. And so she has a very special announcement. I'm so glad I get to be with you as you announce this. So tell us what's happening on the 15th of September.
On the 15th of September, I have been invited to do a TEDx talk.
Wow.
And it's so exciting because it will be listened to from everyone around the world.
It's amazing.
And the subject is grief, our favorite subject.
Yes.
But I really have that heart to get the word out and change the world. I really want to change the world with how we deal with grief. And this was a huge step for me. So I applied to hundreds of TEDx talks.
Wow.
And put out applications definitely for 35 this year. Got called back on 3 and got picked up for Palo Alto and San Antonio, Texas on September 15th with 6 other amazing hosts and guests and sharers. And I'm just so excited to get the word out and let everybody know that I'm going to be talking about grief, what grief is, what loss is in our heart. But one of the things that you and I have talked about, and we share about it all the time, is these myths that people believe about grief. And one of them that's really huge is the stages of grief.
Yes.
The stages of grief were a tool that Eric and I drew upon because it was the only tool that we had when Austin died. We had both learned about them in school. And so we thought, okay, these are the tools we're going to use. But we couldn't make them fit. We didn't understand them. And so on the very first day in our grief recovery class, she shared with us that there were no stages to grief. But Sandy, how many people do you meet, come into your office, need help with grief, and they start explaining to you what stage they think they're in?
And it's so sad too, because yes, many people do that. They share that. And what's really sad about that is, stages of grieving was something that was researched and done,
Yes.
by Kubler-Ross, but then it just got misapplied.
Yes.
And so all these people, like you said, out there are thinking, oh, what stage am I in? Am I in the right stage?
Right.
I don't know if it's time to heal. When I get to this stage, I'll be better. And like Sharon, just shared earlier, you might have somebody come in your office and a loss event maybe happened 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And emotionally, it's like it just happened yesterday. So just going through stages without engaging in some kind of action did nothing to help them actually be better.
Yeah. And even the clients that think they're stuck in anger.
Yes.
And they feel like it's okay to be angry with people, to be mad, to have an attitude of that because they're like, well, I'm in the stage of anger. And I think that I wasn't really sure where I was going to go with the talk because the TEDx talk is an idea worth sharing. Can you imagine an idea worth sharing with the world on grief? And there's so many amazing TEDx talks on grief. I've watched hundreds of them, and they really are amazing. But I think having this little extra twist and putting this myth to bed about how we can actually come to recovery and how we can change in our heart and deal with it head on and know that grief is not a bad word and that we're all going to experience it in our life at some point is going to be huge. And so little bits and pieces have been seeping out about the fact that I actually am going to be doing a TEDx talk, but I wanted to announce it here on the show. And like I said, I'm so glad that you're here.
Me too.
That we can be here because we need to change the world. We need to really get it out there. When you get a call from someone and they're had the worst life-altering event, and you're right there, that person to be there, but to have these tools that can help them is so amazing, is so rewarding.
Well, and I'm so excited that you're going to speak on this because what happens with the stages is that, people think I just go through these stages and then I'm fine.
Yeah.
And they aren't actually grieving. They're not actually getting better.
Yes.
They're not actually recovering.
Right.
And so it not only is it a myth, but it's a dangerous one.
Right. How long are you in each stage? Do you go through the stages in order? Does everyone go through the stages? There were so many questions that we couldn't get the answer to because it's just not laid out there. And I just did a deep dive into Kubler-Ross's book, and the stuff that I learned is just amazing.
Oh.
And so 15 minutes is not enough, but that's what they gave me, and so I'm going to take it.
And you're going to be excellent. You're going to be excellent. Now, for any of us that want to see the TEDx talk, how do we do that?
So it's going to be Palo Alto, TEDx Palo Alto, and .com, and you'll be able to see the TEDx. It's going to be on September 15th. I'm definitely going to share it to my Facebook page and my Instagram page, because I'm going to need help with all of my friends out there to get this talk out and get it shared with as many people as possible, so that it becomes the beginning of my personal journey of really getting the word out that grieving and grieving properly is a process that we really need to learn. And most importantly, I think I want to share that I'm so honored to be able to do this and to be the person that's on this team where we are changing the world one heart at a time. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you're the right person. You are definitely the right person. So
Thank you.
I cannot wait to see it.
I'm so excited. I've been practicing every day. So we are, going to be ready when time comes. Sandy, tell all of our guests and our friends out there how they can get in touch with you.
They can go to griefunchained.com. Also, I'm on Facebook as Sandy Atmore, Sandi Atmore.
Oh, awesome. Guys, Sandy is amazing. She's an amazing grief recovery specialist, and she has a heart to heal. And I love spending time with her and just sitting with her and getting ideas from her and just being at her feet and hearing everything she has to share. So you guys, please reach out to her. I am going to add Sandy's information into the Facebook Live today. We have had such a great time. Thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you so much. See us back here. Sandy will be joining me next month as co-hosting another show, so definitely look for her. Thank you, friends, for joining, and we will see you next week.